Hello, my name is Dr. Imaginous. I'm not a doctor, I just play one here on YouTube, TikTok, and Facebook. Here's today's download. So, how it works. When you're a little kid, everybody knows that when you're a little kid, you have an imagination or a imaginary friend. And as you get older, that imaginary friend is kind of just there, and it slowly goes away because the parents kind of say, oh, it's just your imagination, it's not real, it's just an imagination. But it is a real entity. Your imagination is kind of like your soul. It's like a brand new soul into this world. But as it starts to get educated with, no, don't do that, or, you know, that's hot or that's cold, don't touch that. All those things start like building the character of a person. When we all know that, sometimes that imagination, it just runs wild in kids, and we all know that. Circumstances in my life prevented me from having that discipline when I'm a little boy. My mother and father got divorced. My father left. My mother had to work 3 jobs. I was raised by my older sister, just a couple years older than me. And I didn't have anything but my imagination. I'm left-handed and I have dyslexia. Back then, no one knew what that was. So going to school and everything about school was scary for me because it was all backwards. So as everything started to develop in my life, I started, you know, really getting afraid of going into a school, anything that's like structured like that. So I'd always run away and go on these adventures, float a little stick down a creek, 2 miles, be, 2 miles away from home. And my parents are freaking out because I'm a little kid 2 miles away from home. And I did this all the time. My parents couldn't, or my mom, I mean, she was always working, and I mean, it was really hard for us. But all this time I was just exploring. I never had any structure like a school and stuff like that. They tried, but I'd run away. I mean, I would be there, and next thing you know, I'd be not there, playing somewhere. And they couldn't, they tried, they really did, but I tried harder. Um, so it just almost became a cat and mouse game with the school, the people, and I'm talking about second grade. But my imagination is always like right there, and I always felt really comfortable being out there or wherever. I never felt afraid. I always felt afraid in schools and in structure, but out in I'm not saying the wild, because I don't like being out in the forest and stuff. I'm just saying not in a structure, a structured institution like a school or a courthouse or a hospital or a doctor's clinic, anything like that. The structure is scary for me, and always has been. As you get older and you start getting structure in your life, you start building kind of like bricks in a wall, and it starts to stack up, and your imagination, it's not just running free and wild like a little kid. It has a purpose now. His purpose is to organize all your thoughts in your mind, because your imagination is your soul, it's your person, it's everything in there. But its main job is to keep all your thoughts in order. So, this is what my Imaginous tells me. As your mind starts developing into your teen years and stuff, it starts to really, your hormones, we know all this, everybody knows this. But my imagination kind of like took me from a little kid right into my teens and into my early 20s at a young age, especially after my mother remarried my father. And he had an auto wrecking yard. I worked at his auto wrecking yard, and I never really went to school anymore because they couldn't make me go to school. I was always running away, and so I just worked at my father's auto wrecking yard, which really helped my imagination because all I was able to do is pull things apart and mess around with, all this stuff. I mean, think about everything at an auto wrecking yard. It's not just cars, it's everything. And being a little kid and having that for my playground and my education kind of made my imagination, the way it's stacked up, is more mechanical, more putting this with this, to get this, where normally it's put this word with this word to this word to get this, that line where I was supposed to learn all these words and all this, stuff from school. I was learning, how gears and cogs and axles and motors and is working. So it kind of changed me, It made me more of a, like, I'm not a real good mechanic either. I'm just okay mechanic, but it made my imagination very fluid because I could imagine all this because I could actually see it. I heard this beautiful quote. I think it's the most beautiful quote I've ever heard. The future has to be imagined before it can be built. And everything in this that we see and that's around us is 100% imagined at one time and then built. So our imaginations are the very spear point of anybody's soul, life, everything, because they have to imagine first before anything. And if it's the spear point of your soul, then mine's like right out there on the edge, okay? So it's just never had this structure. So that's kind of a little history of how I got this way. And then it's just been a lifetime of, struggles, trying to avoid not to be in a situation where I have to read and write. Everybody thinks, you're not smart because you can't read and write, but when you get outwork them 2 to 1 and, you have to, because that's the only way you're going to survive. So it's confusing to everybody that I interact with because it's I just have this one way of thinking, and all words and everything about words is completely like mystifying to me. It's just everything. It's super crazy. But then when I use my imagination, I could take, Albert Einstein, one of my favorite people on the ever. Albert Einstein took mental experiments. And I had been taking mental experiments since I was a little kid, but I heard that term and I realized that's all I do is have mental experiments. So I'm able to take my mind and have these mental experiments just so fluidly, where my imagination is so fluid, where it doesn't have all these blocks, all these other barriers that other people's imaginations has to navigate around. I don't know if that makes sense, but we'll try that. So that's a little history about where I'm coming from. The next time, I'd like to talk to you about my Imaginous and where we're going to go on this journey. I imagine you liked this video, so follow me and subscribe to my channel. Share with your friends and neighbors. I'm Dr. Imaginous, reminding you to always follow your imagination.